A few days ago, I finally joined the Silksong 100% club, and wow, what an amazing journey. This game exceeded my expectations far beyond what I thought was possible. And now that I'm done, I'm of course going to be working on my main videos like the boss ranking, bench ranking, smash or pass. But I don't want to jump straight into that just yet. There's just so much I want to talk about now that I finished the Let's Play. Stuff that I need to talk about and get out of my system. It is a game we've waited years for, after all. And what a better way to start off than the top 10 surprises. I am now officially a Watch Mojo channel. Let's go! Although we kinda didn't know shit about Silksong when the game came out, nothing could have prepared me for the absolute face slappers of plot twists and surprises this game had in store for me. From its plot to its gameplay and characters, all things that made me love the game more and more and create the most memorable parts of my playthrough. The surprises that I'm going to cover will be in order from Act 1 to 3, so if you're still not done with the game, you can still watch it up until around where you are. I will put on screen from which acts I'm using footage from for every entry, although most surprises are from Act 3. Anyway, welcome to Silksong's Top 10 Surprises. So let's start off with what I think we can all collectively agree on as one of the most surprising things from Silksong at the very start of the game. Number 1. Acts. The moment the cutscene was done and the act bombshell dropped, me and all the other people knew we were in for absolute cinema. It was already such a crazy surprise because we had already seen the beginning of the game with its cutscene plenty of times, even with a super fresh demo a few weeks before release. But those sneaky Tasmanian devils put a little something right at the end of the cutscene before you officially begin the game. Act 1. And what was even crazier is that the first act was called Farloom. Like, what do you mean Farloom? That's the entire kingdom, what more could there be? And well, the answer was a lot. See, after playing a whole lot in Act 1 and already finding a lot of different areas, I started to wonder every so often, when am I going to Act 2? I already assumed if you're going to have the balls to start using acts, they are probably going to be around the same size. So the longer and longer I was fighting bosses, discovering areas, having the time of my life in Act 1, I just kept wondering, if this is all Act 1, am I not even a third of the way through? In Act 1, I already felt like we pretty much had a full, complete game to play, although a little bit short. There's surely no way it can triple in content, right? It tripled in content. So when I finally did actually reach Act 2, being 14 episodes into my Let's Play where every episode is about an hour, I was just flabbergasted. The fact that Farloom, the kingdom this entire game takes place in, was just a third of the game was nuts, and one of the best surprises this game already had to offer. Number 2. Double damage. We have to talk about the elephant in the room, because I think this is another one we can collectively agree on. So much, in fact, that Team Cherry had to nerf the early game. The moment you complete the tutorial boss and head towards the marrow, you'll come across a skull brute for the first time. An enemy only a few minutes into the game. Double damage. Now, Team Cherry isn't afraid to put double damage early into the game. We've seen it in Hollow Knight with the Guardian Husks, for example. But in Silksong, that was merely a warning. So many enemies, stage hazards, and almost all the bosses do double damage. No one could have prepared me for the amount of double damage I was about to take from everything, ever. What was one of the scariest things in Hollow Knight now became the new normal in Silksong, and I started to ask questions like, is there going to be triple damage soon? And that question was eventually answered. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't disagree with this choice. The fast 3-mask healing would pretty much be too OP if the enemies weren't stronger, and it made for a really cool combat experience of it's so over and we are so back. And especially the bosses needed this. Otherwise, I feel like most of them would have been laughably easy. Now, like I said, Team Cherry did nerf the early game with a few bosses and enemies, which is sad but understandable. But also, most stage hazards now do 1 damage, which I am really happy happy with. I found it super frustrating later on that simple platforming punishes you with 2 masks if you made one mistake. And I was blessed that I played a bit slower and it was updated halfway through my playthrough, cause some areas, I tell you, were not nice to you. But overall, this all was something I could have never predicted. So, number 2 on the surprise list you go. Number 3. Crests. Now, I was not as invested on every little Silksong tidbit of information in our years of waiting compared to others. So I kinda knew nothing about the crests and that this was even a thing at all. But when I stumbled upon the very first one in Greymore, I was shocked that Hunter was not our permanent way of traversing and was super happy about it, because I kinda had enough of that Hunter pogo. Crests allow you to have different playstyles with different bonuses depending on how hard it is to use. And although some crests definitely stick out as better than others, it is so awesome that they allow you to have all these different playstyles. Want a similar and quick attack style to Hollow Knight? Choose Wanderer. Want to play it slow with more range? Choose Reaper. Want to have an attack buff while healing, but to heal you have a few second time frame to attack enemies to gain health, and if you can't, you lose all your silk and possibly die? Nobody really wants this, but you can do it if you want to. And I haven't even talked about how every crest has its own unique tool color loadout. Some crests allow more weapons for destruction, some with more blue ones for more survivability, and some with more yellow ones. Nobody needs yellow ones. Overall, I mostly played with Wanderer since it was kinda busted, but these crests allow for so much replayability and added challenge with certain crests. So it's gonna be really fun replaying this game, trying out all the different crests in different scenarios. So much fun. Number 4. Amount of areas. So, even though I knew the game had 3 acts and already saw the pretty decent amount of areas from Act 1, I didn't think there would be much more besides the Citadel and that the other acts are mostly going to reuse the old areas for the story. I have never been more glad to be wrong. So, Hollow Knight has about 18 areas, depending on how you count them. Silksong has fucking 28, especially in Act 2. I felt like every few minutes I was just entering new areas upon new areas. It was truly amazing. And the areas this time around were so unique from each other, despite the quantity. In Hollow Knight, areas like Howling Cliffs, Deep Nest, Ancient Basin, Forgotten Crossroads, for example, felt very samey, color and aesthetic wise. In Silksong, every area has its own distinct feel, their own unique teaming, hazards and enemies, colors, architecture, you name it. So even if you are in an area that you didn't like, the next one is surely gonna be completely different. This is in my opinion the most important aspect of the game. It is what makes a great Metroidvania or any exploration based game. And they absolutely knocked it out of the park into space with this one. I just couldn't believe it every time I stepped into a new area just how much content Silksong really had. And little did I know at that point, I was in for a 60-hour beautiful experience. Always the best part of any playthrough. Number 5. Act 3. Yeah. It may seem a bit unfair to put like 1/3 of the game as a surprise, but hopefully I'm speaking for everyone here when I say what the absolute radiance fuck happened in Act 3. So after spending so long in Act 2, having beaten the final boss already and having explored pretty much everything at that point, what could even happen beyond here? The god controlling Farloom is already defeated at the end of Act 2. I already explored pretty much most areas from the looks of the map, and we've met every character already. If you told me the game ended here, I believed you. But it's the fact that I knew that acts always come into 3 parts and that plenty of people have already talked about being in Act 3. The only way that there can be an interesting Act 3 is if there's going to be a crazy plot twist that shakes up the entire game as we know it. But Act 3? Oh, cinema! Woo! The Abyss, what? The entirety of Farloom is now full of void strands, completely turning the kingdom of Farloom upside down. Every area you have explored has now changed to have a new void aesthetic, harder enemies, new events and paths to take. You could argue that this doubles the areas in the game. When I started Act 3, I thought this void problem would only be seen in the Citadel. But no, Team Cherry really committed to change every area into this new void state, really showing how problematic the consequences have become, which I found just so cool. Even the resting team changed to a depressing, all hope is lost version of it. For me, this entire act made Silksong go from an excellent game to a near perfect one. In my opinion, to throw something at the plot or the world that completely changes it up with how you know it and explore it, not only is a very smart way of reusing your old areas, but also gives it a good reason to re-explore them and have a nostalgic trip back through them, which are very memorable experiences to me. This is why I considered Mario Galaxy 2 for the longest time to be my favorite game. In that game, you collect 120 stars in various different galaxies. But after you're done with that, 120 new stars spawn in the same galaxies, but in the most absurd places that almost makes me think I'm breaking the game. It forced me to explore the same areas in completely different ways. Ways I never thought were even possible before. And it was such a joy. Now this is still my favorite game, mostly because of nostalgia. But Silksong is getting very close to beating it. And with more DLCs on the horizon, it most likely will be my new favorite game soon. And imagine if they somehow add an Act 4 to this game. Overall, Act 3 sold the deal for me. Without it, I don't think this game was nearly as great as it is right now. Number 6. The Snail Shamans. Nothing in this game blew my mind more than when they revealed the 3 Snail Shamans in Act 3. These 3 mysterious characters that we've seen throughout our adventure that I didn't think much of besides all being very grumpy and lumpy. The Chapel Maiden, the Bell Hermit and the Caretaker I thought were NPCs to just give some lore and fill out the world of Farloom. I mean, the Bell Hermit is literally acting like Midwife 2.0, but just a little less sex appeal. But then, suddenly, the Caretaker has a new quest for you to collect these soul artifacts to create a deadly trap for Grandmother Silk and bring you into Act 3. This was already crazy to me. I never thought Caretaker would get a much more important role than being annoying and mean to everyone. And then I noticed that the artifacts lie at the Chapel Maiden and Bell Hermit, and suddenly I start to think, wait, these characters are all very similar, aren't they? All cloaked and mysterious. What could they be hiding? So after trapping Grandmother Silk, destroying the entire world with Void, you know the usual, and meeting back up with them, they uncloak and reveal themselves to be Snail Shamans. So they weren't misshaped bugs! I really thought you were born with such an unfortunate forehead, man. It made so much sense, yet I never expected this in a million years. To have Snail Shamans back is one thing, but to have them be characters that were right in front of my nose this whole time is crazy work. I loved it, and I was so happy seeing them have such an important role throughout the rest of Act 3. Amazing. Number 7. Hollow Knight references. Even though this game is of course a sequel to our beloved Hollow Knight, I didn't expect there to be so many Hollow Knight features in Silksong. It may sound weird, but yeah, I was expecting pretty much zero similarities, zero crossovers, you know, except for Hornet. So every time one of them popped up, I popped off. Not only did they bring back certain things to please old fans, they also made them so much more important to the story and expanded their lore beyond what Hollow Knight did. Lifeblood, as a prime example, was one of the coolest side plots in Silksong. We only really knew it as this fluid that made you healthier, and overall the origin of it was super vague still. Silksong turned that around with this entire Xilotl side quest where we help him study the plasmium that grows around the wormways, and eventually turns into this unstoppable plague that devours the entire wormways ecosystem and turns the blood of creatures into plasmium, making it lifeblood. Dude, that stuff was just mind-blowing. But also, of course, the Everbloom returning and being the most important item in Act 3, to eventually be able to dive into the void to face Grandmother Silk again. Although, nothing beats the entire Abyss returning as an explorable area. From the enemies, aesthetic, and lore all being back, you could say I was a little excited when I got here. What made it even better is that it was right in my face at the start of Act 3. But again, I never in a million years thought that Team Cherry would do something like that, or even have more areas to begin with. Such a power move too, to make this the very final area where the true ending takes place. All these returning features from Hollow Knight made waiting for this game all the more worth it as a long-time fan. Number 8. Red Memory. This kind of falls into the previous category. At the same time though, we already had an entire Act 3 entry in this list. The Red Memory, however, was something so special to me that it needed its own entry. It was this moment that made me truly fall in love with Silksong and pretty much be confident enough to say it's the best game ever made. To obtain the Everbloom and dive into the void, you've been tasked to collect these hearts from different tribes, to let the shamans cast a spell on you, to let you search the Everbloom in your own mind and make it reality. Crazy, I know. What I was expecting was maybe a boss fight against a Hollow Knight character, which honestly, a boss fight against the Pale King would be very much appreciated. Instead, we got the most emotional sequence of cutscenes and rooms to go through of Hornet's past. Baby Hornet not being accepted by the Weavers since she's half worm, Hornet not even remembering her own mother's face, seeing Hornet get trained by Vespa for the exact thing that started Silksong, platforming through the White Palace and facing the White Lady with Hornet's most badass lines yet and the most spine-shivering music along the whole sequence. I got so many shivers from this moment and even got a bit emotional. It truly was the most beautiful moment of gaming in 2025, and by far the most rewarding thing in this entire game for long-time Hollow Knight fans. Also, I didn't emphasize this enough, but Baby Hornet, she is so fucking cute! Number 9. Mr. Mushroom. It couldn't be a surprise list without talking about Mr. Mushroom, possibly my favorite character in the franchise. After we saw his infamous "to be continued", I was pretty certain we would see him in Silksong. But as time went on and I kept playing and got further and further, I was kinda losing hope. Silksong, however, was already peak enough as it is, so I didn't really think about it a whole lot, since I was enjoying my time with every other thing there was to see. So to suddenly remember a random opening at Fleetopia from editing an older episode, going all the way there expecting pretty much nothing. Well, here, this is what I saw. So maybe... Yes, oh my god. Oh my god. No way! He was back, baby, and better than ever, because he not only returned with his riddles to find him, but it was actually an official quest to finish for, of course, an additional ending. I loved that Hornet was trying to talk back to him, since she is actually able to talk, but Mr. Mushroom just kept ignoring her. What was truly amazing though, is this final platforming challenge all the way at the top of Farloom for Mr. Mushroom's final location. Not only was this the perfect final spot as he started at the bottom for his first location and ended at the top, we now also get to see the outside of Farloom, giving you this total wasteland feeling, being somewhere we are not supposed to be. And seeing the remnant of the sole survivor that didn't get caught by Farloom's curse, it really made me think about how big this world really is and how many kingdoms there are hiding beneath the surface throughout these wastelands. But yeah, I was the happiest person alive when I saw Mr. Mushroom back. It is, however, not the most surprising thing in Silksong, because that can only go to this one final thing. Number 10. The true ending. By far, easily the biggest surprise in all of Silksong is the true ending. First of all, having the final boss be Lace was already worthy of being the biggest surprise alone. Okay, maybe not against Mr. Mushroom. Once you beat her and try to escape the Void Lake with her body in your hands, your Everbloom starts to break, leaving you and Lace in the middle of the void with no way out. As surviving seems impossible, there was one final rescue left to help you out of this dire void situation. The Knight. Truly the biggest plot twist of all time. I don't think a single soul could have predicted for the Knight to return. Seeing as how Team Cherry stated that any ending could have been possible, anything could have been canon. If you've been following my Let's Play, this twist, especially for me, was the craziest shit of all time. See, before the game came out, everyone always said to me that this game was going to be a prequel. And you can even see some of those comments in my Hollow Knight Let's Play that I made very recently too. And me being naive and very easily trusting these random Hollow Knight fans and YouTubers, I thought the entire game that Silksong was a prequel. Even when obvious signs started to show up to it being a sequel, in my mind I warped everything in a way so it made sense for a prequel. I had this mindset until the very fucking end of the game. So far into the end, in fact, my first response to the night in the true ending was... No! Wait, is the flower actually broken or not? No way! No way! I'm assuming this is just or the Hollow Knight or like a random sibling. Yeah, I get manipulated pretty easily. But enough about my toxic relationship. I was such a believer of Team Prequel solely because of one thing, pretty much. No matter the evidence that came after. And that is because Hornet relearns her attacks for some reason. And I would love for you lore people to answer me this. Why did she have to relearn all her attacks if she already knew them in Hollow Knight? I don't believe this theory of the spell that was around the cage in the beginning cutscene to have taken away her powers, although it is the most logical explanation. Every time she relearns one again, it is from a Weaver Spire saying they have been waiting for her for so long, as if they predicted Hornet losing her attacks and waiting for her to give them back. Like, a lot of things just don't add up here. So please go ahead and give me your theories on what happened here. Because it was this sole reason that made me in Team Prequel the entire way through, unfortunately. Either way though, what a f***ing fantastic surprise to end this game off with. And truly make it the best game of 2025. No questions asked. And there you have it, my first main Silksong video. Let me know what your biggest surprises in this game were, because honestly, there are still so many things that didn't make it into the list. Silksong season is starting on the channel, and I have so many crazy fun video ideas waiting for you. So I would like to kindly ask you to subscribe if you don't want to miss that. I'm trying to hit 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year, as that would be an absolute dream of mine, to finally get this piece of metal to make me feel like I'm worth something in society. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!